everybody. Good morning, or actually it's afternoon. It's not morning anymore. So I just wanted to jump on here really quick and go over a couple of news things that I looked at this morning. I just need to get them pulled up here. If you are not familiar with the Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt case, there's lots on the internet for that. Ruby Franke's oldest daughter, Shari, has been very vocal at speaking out about being a child. Thank you, Melody. Being a child forced onto camera for pretty much most of her life, and also being abused in the whole thing. To me, it's inherently abusive to be doing family vlogging. There's no ethical way to do it unless all of the laws were to change around how to protect children in that space. But yeah, some of these kids who grew up on the internet, have been now speaking out as adults, trying to get laws changed, trying to raise awareness for the dangers and exploitation of children in these situations. And if we think that Hollywood is bad enough, there's zero regulations on YouTube for that kind of thing. Patreon, Snapchat, TikTok, wherever you want to post your children. And unfortunately, I've seen some really gross people do gross things to their children for views. It is growing in number of child influencers. Come on, like, let's stop doing this to children. Like, not only are you putting your child out there for clicks and views and money, you're opening them up for predators, for any person on the internet to scrutinize. There were children who, as they were growing up, didn't even understand why like out in public, they would get recognized by strangers and want a picture and a hug from them. Like, that is just weird. Why are we doing this to our children? But Shari Franke went in front of Congress in Utah. Let me pull this up real fast. I should have already had it ready. Of course I didn't, because why would I have anything prepared? Here it is. Okay, good. Let's pull this up and share it. Present this tab. Thank you.
Committee members, thank you for your time. Understand where you're at in terms of the
Hopefully
schedule.
You can hear it okay.
I will be extremely brief. I wanted this to be an issue on interim study because of the importance of the issue and its relative unknown, the fact that it's unknown by, I think, most people in the legislature and the public, the vulnerability of child actors in traditional media and also in new forms of social media influencers, and would like to invite a well-known person in our state to testify about it, Shari Franke. And so I'm going to turn the time over to her.
Welcome in, everyone.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Shari Franke. My mother, Ruby Franke, is a...
Just give me a moment. I'm going to let this play while I disappear off the screen for just 2 seconds, but I'll be back. So yeah, Play.
Prominent family vlogger that was arrested last year for child abuse. I don't come today as the daughter of a felon, nor as a victim of an abnormally abusive mother. I come today as a victim of family vlogging. My goal is not to present any idea of a solution to this problem, but to shed light on the ethical and monetary issues that come from being a child influencer. When children become stars in their family's online content, they become child influencers. It is more than just filming your family life and putting it online. It is a full-time job with employees, business credit cards, managers, and marketing strategies. The difference between family vlogging and a normal business, however, is that all the children are employees. Children from before they are born to the day they turn 18 have become the stars of family businesses on YouTube, Instagram, and other social media platforms. Utah is specifically a hotspot for family content due to the LDS culture around family and the goal to share the church with the world. We also have large families, which makes family content more lucrative. Specifically, many parents film their regular family life as an online video blog called a vlog. But I want to be clear that there is never, ever a good reason for posting your children online for money or fame. There is no such thing as a moral or ethical family vlogger. At first, family vlogging is an alluring business that can bring high revenue. For my family, it became the primary source of income, as is often the case with most full-time family vloggers. Many child influencers are paid for their work, as I was, and this money has helped me in my adult life. However, this payment was usually a bribe. For example, we'd be rewarded $100 or a shopping trip if we filmed a particularly embarrassing moment or an exciting event in our lives.
Excuse me. That makes me enraged. Like, oh, well, it reminds me of, I don't know if anybody ever saw the clip of this lady who made her son like cry. Well, he was really crying. He was really upset, but like was trying to get a picture for like the cover of the video. And was like, be more sad, look more sad. And in the video, the little boy's going, but I am sad. Like, can we stop doing this? Like, I did watch Colleen Ballinger for a while. I never really watched Miranda Sings video content. I was usually like, occasionally I would see one and be like, oh, that's kind of funny. But I thought that the show was quite hilarious until I realized that her audience was mostly kids. And then I was like, wait a minute, she has some like adult jokes in here, like a bunch of like uncle touching me jokes and other incestuous, like, and apparently in the Haters Back Off, she wanted to put even more than that in there, but the production was like, no, we got to tone it down. Do you need to come in my lap? You want to come here? Come here, baby. Let's see. Will it capture my cat? Hi. Say hello. Oh, she's very, that doesn't really work very well on the screen with like the weird background I have. But anyway, with Colleen Ballinger, like it took me a long time as an adult to realize like what she was doing. And then finding out that her brother and her both groom children, the fact that she still has, like, she's apologized, but she's never really told her audience what she had to really apologize for, what the specifics were. Like, because like one of the biggest things for a lot of us was the sending around of Trisha Paytas's OnlyFans. So her and her friends can make fun of her. And some of those got in the hands of, like, she sent these to a minor as well. So, yeah. These are the YouTubers that we allow our kids to watch. There's so many YouTubers that have, like, been caught talking to minors in very inappropriate ways. And that will lead me always into the conversations of, like, the boundaries between the creator and the audience, especially if you know you have a bunch of teenagers or kids watching you. You know what I mean? But anyway, let's get back to this.
Or other times, simply going on vacation was expected to be payment enough because most kids don't get to go on regular and expensive trips. Never mind the fact that the child's labor is actually what paid for the vacation or trip. There is no law in place to guarantee that child influencers get any money from their work. If a family account does not become an LLC, parents are taxed heavily for paying their children. But parents also receive tax write-offs for the regular clothes that they wear, the gas money used to drive places, and even the houses they live in. Anything that is filmed can be written off. And even after registering their business as an LLC, there is no guarantee that children will get paid. Any payment that does happen is under the table with no paper trail. And how do we determine how much a child should make from appearing in family content? What price is worth giving up your childhood? But despite any monetary payment children may receive, don't let this excuse the 24/7 labor that these children are subjected to. As a child, I was fully aware that I was an employee. The business was successful when I was happy or when I shared my hardships with the world. Some of our most popular videos were when my eyebrow was accidentally waxed off and the whole world saw a crying teenager when I just wanted to mourn in private. Or the time I was violently ill and got the leading role in the video that day. My friends became scarce because dates were filmed and none of my friends wanted to be on camera. The camera never stops and there is no such thing as a break from filming. At the time, I tell you I had a choice in what was filmed, but I've come.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, I've heard the whole, like, well, I've asked my child and they're fine with it. They are a child. They don't quite understand the implications of this work and being on camera constantly and having however many people, strangers in the world, publicly seeing your most embarrassing moments, seeing your childhood in ways that you may not want them to see. This is kind of why I'm glad that I did not grow up in the age of social media. Like, I don't understand how kids are getting by these days, because there's been countless articles talking about how the newest generations growing up on social media have said that they are the loneliest that they have ever been. It is considered the loneliest generation. Like, that breaks my heart.
I'm to learn that every child influencer, in a way, suffers from Stockholm Syndrome. Most child influencers would probably tell you they have full control over what is posted, but the reality is that their parents bribe and shame them into posting their most vulnerable moments. In fact, many child influencers may tell you that they enjoy their work because of the monetary perks they receive or the fun experiences that they can have. After all, what child would say no to a fun vacation or shopping spree if all they needed to do was film an embarrassing moment? But as children, we do not understand the consequences of filming our lives and posting it for the world to see. We cannot give consent to our parents to post our lives. In any other context, it is understood that children cannot give consent. But for some reason, people think family vlogging is different.
Children cannot consent. What did I just say? Even if that child says, yeah, sure, put the camera in her face. I totally want to show off this thing or this, like, whatever happened to me. They don't know how many people are watching that. They don't know that it's what it's really going out there for if they're like young. Back to the Colleen Ballinger, the whole family, like, I really was like, I thought it was cute when she was using her kids in her videos. And I was sitting there trying to, like, tell myself, like, she's not utilizing them constantly. She's not really, like, marketing it as a family channel. But because she had kids, it became a family channel. And her brother, older brother, has a family channel, the Ballinger family. And, like, they talked about their daughter's first period. They, I can definitely tell that some of those kids are loving what they're doing and they're gonna be theater kids, which, that's great. But there needs to be boundaries. There needs to be hard lines and protections. Like, what if your kid does want to show off their cool thing that they're doing and the play that they're trying to do or something like that? There are ways to do that in a very ethical and compassionate way to the child, versus, like, just shoving cameras in their faces all day long and asking them to perform the same thing over and over again just to get the right shot. That's not okay. Not okay.
Different. I did not realize the impact that filming as a child would have on me now. My social media became flooded with rumors of having sexual relations with my own brother, to being called a baby birthing machine at the age of 13. All these things have stuck with me, and I will forever live between the ages of 13 to 17 in many of my viewers' minds. In addition, pedophiles stalk the internet, specifically seeking out child influencers. I
Yep.
promise you that the parents are aware of these predators
Yep.
and choose to post their children.
Yep. There are tons of parents out there that I've seen use their children in ways where I'm like, they know what they're doing. When you have your 6-year-old, your 5-year-old little girl parading around in a little bikini, not by the pool, and like trying to do sexy dances, there's only one audience you're catering to. It's not cute. Maybe some people think that's adorable, but there are a ton more who find that arousing. So, yeah, we need to be more protective of our kids and what we post about them. I have friends who want to share the photos of their kids with their family and friends, so they start private file shares so that everybody can still see what's going on without them having to post it to social media.
Children anyway. I understand that this is a big issue to tackle, and I am not asking you to ban family vlogging, though that is my end goal. I also understand that as Utahns, we don't appreciate big government overreach, but when it comes to protecting children, it should be a bipartisan issue. The only people harmed by child influencer laws are the parents exploiting their children. While this may not seem like an issue now, as child influencers in Utah continue to grow up, I foresee there will be legal crises, with these children realizing that vlogging has brought severe emotional distress, or these kids may realize they don't have an appropriate amount of money to show for their labor. After all, how does that child know how much they should have made versus what their parents may or may not have paid them? Let's deal with this now before we reach that point. But even despite a good paycheck, I want to be absolutely clear that there is no amount of money that can justify selling your soul as a child to the world. In no other industry would we justify unregulated child labor with a huge paycheck, and we should not do that here. If I could go back and do it all again, I'd rather have an empty bank account now and not have my childhood plastered all over the internet. No amount of money I received has made what I've experienced worth it. While I don't have all the answers nor many feasible solutions for this problem, I am proud to be one of the first child influencers in the state of Utah to speak against this issue. I don't want people to look at me and blame my unique circumstances with a mother in prison to the Franke criminal case. Family vlogging ruined my innocence long before Ruby committed a crime. I promise you that my experiences are not unique and are happening to child influencers all over Utah and the country. So let's tackle this issue before it becomes a bigger crisis than it already is. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Committee member.
Yeah. So that was what she said to Congress. Let's hope that that starts things going. I know her dad has been talking to the Utah boards to get something done when it comes to therapy and life coaching, because once Ruby Franke got involved with Jody Hildebrandt, Jody was a certified therapist, but strictly basically for the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church was paying her lots of money to basically ruin families' lives, and she ruined thousands of people's lives. Many people have come forward about Jody and her practices. Ruby, once she got involved with her, became a quote-unquote certified life coach or life improvement coach or whatever. No background, no training. It's all BS. But people will still fall for that kind of stuff and pay people without really researching. And I also think Utah is up against, a big problem with the policies of the Mormon Church and how kids are treated in families, because Jody Hildebrandt did a lot of horrible crap to like her own niece, to these Ruby Franke's like youngest kids and stuff. Utah's like Mormonism, like Ruby Franke got all of her practices from being a Mormon, and she was already abusing her children. There are policies and practices within a lot of religious institutions that make it so that you're not really treating your child like they're a full human being outside of yourself. They gotta earn their place in the world, earn their respect, earn their food, because food is a privilege. And in researching some more of this stuff and how Utah is coming up against things, is this the right one? Yes. The child torture bill. So Utah has the highest cases of child abuse out of the whole country.
Reby, Representative Matt McPherson, both a part of the committee who heard the bill language today, and a conversation with Kevin Franke, Ruby Franke's husband, who was recently on Utah's
and hi,
Capitol
Indigo.
Hill
I don't know if I said hi
talking
when you
about
walked in.
Utah's child welfare system. Now, in this morning's law enforcement and criminal interim justice criminal interim meeting, the committee discussed child abuse and torture. This after multiple cases garnered significant attention, including the death of Gavin Peterson in West Haven, and of course the children of Ruby Franke in Ivins. The bill passed out of committee 14-1. Now, Dr. Tony Lasky, medical director with the Children's Justice Centers in Utah, spoke on Capitol Hill about what she sees when patients come to her with injuries consistent with child abuse.
When I evaluate these cases, the overlaps with written descriptions of torture from war-torn areas of our world throughout time is striking. The difference between a war crime and the victims I see are these victims are children. These victims come to believe their abusers, that they are unlovable and that they deserve this and that they brought it onto themselves. In cases that involve death, the pain is over.
Because a lot of that you get from religion. Being a Southern Baptist, it was all you were born of sin, so you must keep repenting to find your way back to God. Like,
over for the victim. The pain they endured prior to that is unmeasurable. And sadly, for the victims that live, the pain will continue because they have been so psychologically damaged by their treatment, by those that they were dependent on for the basics of survival, food, water, clothing, safety, love, that it will take a lifetime of intensive work to undo. I've taken care of these children who were rescued from their abusers, sometimes after multiple near misses, where the alarm was raised, but the system failed to see what was happening, and the child was returned without intervention, often making the abuse even worse, and the psychological abuse telling them that no one will ever believe them or save them even more real.
Oh, yeah, that was told to me. I had a unique start of life with having, a substance user parent, and I was being raised by my mom's mom, who was quite abusive, and she told me a lot what CPS was, what foster care was like, and I better be thankful and lucky that I'm not dead in a ditch somewhere with my mom or stuff like that. So once when CPS came to the house, I did lie because I also knew that I don't know. I didn't want to be taken away from my actual biological family. Even if I had been treated better, there was no way for me to know if I would have been. So I think this happened when I was like 11 years old, 10 or 11. And so, yeah, I lied to the CPS worker. Plus, she shouldn't have had my grandmother like be in the room or near the room when she talked to me. I found out later in life that was illegal for her to do.
There is no celebration that they are safe now. They are just on a different journey, a journey that will require intensive mental health therapy. It will require helping them try to catch up socially and academically from the deprivation that they've endured. It will require teaching them how to eat normally again. It requires helping them to learn to trust adults, something that has never been a given in their situation. They are challenging to place in foster care. They have trouble with all things that affect children who have survived trauma: drugs, alcohol, risk-taking, anger issues, depression, anxiety, PTSD. While I want to focus on what this means to the children who endure the equivalent of being a POW in their own homes, it is also important to recognize the impact on our communities. In the cases I have worked, the number of professionals who have experienced collateral damage, something we call...
Did she just call them prisoners of war? I mean, I don't think there's anything, I guess, wrong with that, but I think she just called children who are in their homes being abused POWs. That's not entirely inaccurate. So I guess sometimes I felt like it was a war in my house, and it was just really a battle between me and my grandmother, and sometimes another member of my family, and sometimes my mom. Yeah.
Vicarious trauma cannot be overstated. The police who work these cases and rescue the child, seeing firsthand a child handcuffed to a bed, looking starved nearly to death, and then listening to a forensic interview to the child explain why they are to blame. The CPS workers who have to get to the other children in the home to evaluate them and hear them say, "He's a bad kid. That's why we have to do these things to him." The doctors in the hospital who stabilize the child who is teetering on the edge of death due to severe malnutrition and discovering all the scars and injuries on their battered bodies. The lawyers on both sides of the case that have to review all of the material, all of the photos, all of the videos, the testimony of the children. The juries that till that day had never seen a case of regular child abuse and now have images and stories in their head that they can never unhear. The foster families who take these children in and try to give them a normal life, a life they have an incredibly hard time adjusting to. This is not a unique Utah issue. This is happening nationally.
Senator Kathleen Reby, who's a member of this committee who heard the bill today, joined me this afternoon for an important conversation on the best practices to keep kids safe with the new torture bill as a deterrent. What are your impressions of the...
Sorry, I just have to pause it for a second because I feel like just listening to her just like it makes me want to cry. It's just like thinking about cases that I've seen, cases I've reviewed and researched, and the things that I've seen parents do to their kids. It's just like unforgettable and unforgivable in my eyes. Totally unforgivable. Like, how dare you? Like, really?
The bill and what stands out to you?
I always appreciate any work that's done with child abuse. We have a high rate of child abuse in the state of Utah, and it's higher than most people would think. It's one of the highest in the nation. So any work that would be done to eliminate, deter, alleviate any work at all, I support wholeheartedly.
Sounds like some of your thoughts were on the prevention side of this, having, of course, your expertise as a teacher and seeing children on a daily basis. What else do you feel?
This is why I do advocacy work. And this is what I want to know more about. I want to know how to get involved with people who are putting forth bills, how to like start these types of bills getting passed. Like, why can't we get something like this in every state?
Feel like could be included in this bill or could also be brought forth come session time?
Thank you for that question. I think that we really need to start working on prevention of child abuse. And I know there was a bill passed last year that talks about preventing child abuse. Part of prevention, though, is actually seeing kids, having kids around other adults that actually can have eyes on them. So we've talked about this in previous sessions, and I bring it up as often as I can, is when kids are not seen by other adults in their lives, there is a lack of support.
Exactly. If you are not, this is why, like, I think she's going to talk probably about homeschooling. This is why there needs to be oversight to homeschooling, especially when you see that someone has made an observation of possible child abuse, and then all of a sudden they're removing the child from the school. Also, the other thing is, I do not believe in allowing parents to opt your kid out of knowing about their body, knowing about sex abuse, knowing what is healthy and unhealthy sex. Because I've seen cases where parents pull their kids out of those things because they don't want them to know that incest is wrong. That what they are going through at home, that's perfectly normal. That's what parents do to their kids. Yeah.
And so when we have home.
Sorry, I'm not looking at the, I need a moment. Let me look at what you guys are saying. I can see that comparison ringing true because at some point you become trapped with no way out. I feel bad for the siblings as well because they are also victims to a point. Yeah. Why can't these bills be federal? Yes, exactly. Why can't these bills be federal?
Homeschooling, or when we have kids that are leaving to go to other schools constantly, that should be a red flag that they're leaving for nefarious reasons. So I think we can look at some of the data and actually watch what happens. I mean, we have a lot of great homeschooled parents. I'm not saying that at all, but when a person leaves a school because we have asked them about their behaviors, that should be a red flag and we should continue to watch them.
One of your colleagues brought up kind of I guess what they defined as maybe some vagueness in some language. And I don't think that's uncommon when you're reading some of these things and trying to decipher what the real root of some of these bills are. At least I feel that way as a member of the public. But do you agree with some of those things that maybe there are things that need to be tightened up for this bill to be as successful as possible for the common goal?
Yeah, I mean, every bill we start, I mean, I give Senator Ipsen a ton of credit. He brought this forward, trying to bring some betterment to this situation. And I think that it can be tightened up. Some of the concerns they had were that it was nebulous, where you could be misunderstood about what was happening in your home life. And so I suggested that, professional consent, professional consultations. So these things are already happening in our, these laws are already in place. We were just trying to make them more vibrant. And so when we look to make this law better, we should probably try to include what is child abuse and what is not child abuse, because we would not want to capture any families that were just caught in a misunderstanding or had kids with special needs. I know that sometimes kids with special needs can be violent and they need other things. So making sure that we eliminated any confusion so that parents who are not acting in a nefarious way would not be caught up in this bill.
Yes. One of the things that needs to happen is follow-up visits. My friend's kids got trapped in a situation with someone who is not a great person, and he was able to groom her, not the kid. Well, he's grooming the kids, but groom my friend in ways to get get her to trust him more and to allow this man to adopt at least one of the kids because that kid's dad was no longer alive. And it's a big complicated mess, but my friend was not able to stay in the home with her kids. She had to leave. She did not win her court battle because she was doing pro se, which means you're on your own. And I remember hearing, she sent me the 911 calls. There were multiple from strangers on the streets who were seeing one of the girls running without her shoes on, just running away from two men. The cops got there, cops asked, and they were told that the girl was autistic and she had just gotten away from the house and she was upset and couldn't come back. When he tried to question her, she wouldn't say anything. There was zero follow-up. There was zero, like, let me see paperwork of this. Like, there's got to be more follow-ups, questions to weird situations. How can you be certain that that was the case with this and just let these men go and take this little girl running away from them, no shoes on, and he's not even the biological father? Like, what? So let's see. What else?
I also spoke with State Representative Matt McPherson about the torture bill in the legislature. McPherson was the only member of the committee to vote against the bill, but as he told me, it's not because he doesn't like the concept of the bill, it's the language and some things that he'd like to see adjusted before moving forward.
I think the bill is a good idea. I think it's important to note that everything, and this was brought up in committee too, everything in that bill is already against the law. It's already illegal. It's already being prosecuted. But
not enough. Not enough. Because we know that when it comes to religion, there are religious protections, and there are numerous reasons to explain away certain things that you were doing with your children. And if the powers that be are just like, cool, all right, well, carry on, then there's not a lot that can be done. You need people who are looking at these going, nah, like, what religion should allow a parent to withhold food or water or their bed or their privacy or anything in order to teach a lesson or be disciplined, be one with God, to be more godly? Like, I just want the religious protections to go away, because if you're truly religious and your religion is supposed to be good, then you're not going to harm your kids. Period.
the standards as far as how we're charging these and what we can see as far as penalties are pretty low. Even at the worst case, we could still see a minimum sentencing as low as 0 days in jail. And so I think there is a real desire and a real reason to have these enhancement measures put in place so that we can actually have, especially when it comes to children and torture, that there's a way to keep the abuser and the victim separated for a period of time.
Now, if I remember correct, were you the lone individual to vote technically against this bill? And I think that was for a reason, so you can get it through another hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So there was a number of issues with the bill. Primarily had to do with, they added, as far as language wise, they took out torture as a definition being a physical abuse, and they wanted to add mental and psychological injury and abuse to that, which I think is appropriate, but it comes down to the definition. And their current definition of psychological abuse was kind of vague. It didn't have very specific meaning. It had some examples, but then it kind of...
Yeah, I think a lot of the times when we're thinking abuse, we're not thinking of that emotional impact, that mental impact that abuse has on somebody. and abuse isn't just physical. It's, I feel like, a more nefarious type of abuse because it only leaves invisible scars to the victim, when it's purely a psychological torture.
Kind of had a catch-all at the end, kind of collecting anything that could qualify as harming a child psychologically or their well-being. And that catch-all was kind of the concern was, at what point do we consider, I brought up the example of, you have a kid that you have grounded for a month because of some behavioral problems. And they don't get to go out and do the things that the other kids get to do. Maybe they're being forced to do chores and other things. Some people might think, are you somehow mentally abusing or psychologically abusing that child? Some people could have different methods of parenting that might be more corporeal in fashion. And we have to decide, yes, at what point are we creating the laws where they stand when it comes to physical abuse, mental abuse, psychological abuse. But when we don't have a definition and we're elevating this to a first-degree felony with a minimum 10-year penalty, those two hand in hand. I didn't like the possibility that there could be some vagueness in that. So I have spoken with the AG's office about clarifying.
I think you need to be very clear.
We need a procedural. We couldn't have a unanimous yes vote, otherwise it would skip committee coming back. And so I did, because I had the primary concerns. I voted no to make sure that we at least had a no vote to trigger that requirement.
Earlier this week, during a hearing on DCFS response to child abuse, Brian Malahy caught up with Kevin Franke, whose children were found malnourished and emaciated while under the care of Kevin's wife, Ruby, and Jody Hildebrand. He spoke about what needs to be done to protect Utah kids.
So much of this discussion is going on behind closed doors, and I think that needs to.
So I'm proud of this man for coming forward more and actually helping to change some things, but he also was involved with the family vlog channel, with the family channel, and approved of these abusive punishments to his own children. He did get sent away by Jody Hildebrand. That's what she does when she splits families up. She always says that it's the man's fault. The man must go away for a minimum of a year or some crap. But also, what men are just going, okay, cool, I'll stay away from my wife and my children? What? Why does religion do this to people?
Stop.
Is that the major issue here, the major problem?
I don't think it's the major issue, but I do think it is a major issue. I think there needs to be transparency in dissecting the entire child welfare system. Second, I think a major issue that we don't talk a lot about, but I think we need to, is how much power the judges in the juvenile court have over this entire process. They literally are the drivers and the decision makers for the go or no go in most of these cases. And that really needs to be examined closer, I think.
Because?
And some of these judges really, really suck. They really do. I've seen so many be biased or just side with one of the parents because they have, a lawyer or a fancier lawyer. It's not a fair system. It's not a perfect system. It's not a good system. But when it works, it actually works.
Well, because do they really know what's going on? They're 3 steps removed from the child as opposed to individuals like teachers, neighbors, friends, ecclesiastical leaders who are only 1 step removed from the child. And those individuals know best when something is wrong.
So more transparency, better judicial oversight and review. What else?
I would encourage the legislature to speak with the individuals who were boots on the ground in this. Not the director, not the administrators, speak with the caseworker.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with that. And yeah, I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about how things could change, how we could do better by children. But let me know your thoughts, what you think should happen. If you have any insight or want to start helping me and others like tackle these types of issues, yeah, just leave me a message in the comments and let me know your thoughts and feelings. Thank you for those that tuned in. Thank you to those on the replay crew. Let's keep up the fight for helping children not have to go through trauma, especially at the hands of people who are supposed to love them. So until next time, I hope you stay safe and hydrated wherever you are in the world. And I'll speak to y'all soon. Bye-bye.